What's up, you guys? This is the Man Up Club Presents podcast on Holy Culture Radio. I'm your host, Selena Lena, aka Sis from Sis and Lil Bro. Today we have a special guest. His name is Jontae Washington. He is 35 years old. Jontae, say what's up.
Hey, what's going on?
Jontae is a real estate agent, and also he sits on the board of the neighborhood association here in the Twin Cities. Specifically, what neighborhood are you, or neighborhoods are you over?
Currently just Falwell.
Okay. And what area is that located by? I know I'm not from here, so.
Oh yeah, that's North Side, Minneapolis.
Okay, super dope, super dope. So yeah, we are gonna talk a little bit about him, his story, things that he's been through, because he's been through quite a lot. He's learned a lot of lessons, and we're gonna dive deep into that. We'll even touch on, some. Actually, let me just save it. Okay, guys. So let's dive deep into this. So, Jontae, first off, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good, feeling good. Weather's great.
I know that's right in
Pulled out
Minnesota.
the motorcycle, so we out cruising, riding, enjoying the weather.
Right. So, how did you get into real estate?
I have a background in sales, and I've done sales for the better part of my entire adulthood, and I just kind of sat down what I was doing. I didn't enjoy it anymore, and I sat down. I went in my prayer closet, did a little fast, and I just kept on hearing real estate, and as I kept progressing, I just kept meeting more and more people that were doing that line of business, and eventually I took that as a sign that this might be my calling. So that's how I got into my real estate business.
So you're a man of faith.
Yes.
Um, are you the only real estate agent in your family?
Yep. I'm the only one.
So you said you prayed about it. What were
Mhm.
you doing before you got into it?
I was doing sales with Comcast.
Okay. Okay, I got you. So you were one of the people at the grocery stores asking people like, "Oh, what's your internet provider?"
Nah, we did a call center.
Okay.
So it was like a call center where we would pretty much help you through your services and things like that, and try to, essentially add more services to your existing Comcast account or help you create one.
Okay. And so, obviously that's a jump from doing like a regular quote unquote 9 to 5 to
Hmm.
something more entrepreneurial.
Oh, yeah.
Where did you get that drive? Like, what was it about that lifestyle that you were previously into that, you were like, okay, I just want to change this. I want to pray about this and make a change.
Yeah, I think that being in that type of environment, that lifestyle, and also trying to navigate life as a single parent, right? I
Hmm.
think that's very challenging. And I think I came to a point where I just felt like I can be a more present father.
Okay.
But also, being a single parent working a 9 to 5, I think is very challenging for anybody. So I think I was more so attracted to that flexibility.
Okay. Before you became a father, let's talk about your childhood and how you got there. So, what was your childhood like? Like, what was your family dynamics like?
Yeah. So my entire family is all from New Orleans, Louisiana, right?
Okay.
We lived down there for a good part of my childhood, and the family kept bouncing between Louisiana and Georgia,
Okay.
right? And eventually we made our way up here to Minnesota. My mom, single mother. I got 8 brothers and sisters,
It's a
so she
lot.
has 9 kids in total
As a single
as
mom
a single mom.
with 9 kids?
9 kids.
Oh, wow.
So as you can expect,
Wow.
childhood was kind of challenging, especially because we grew up in more impoverished communities. We dealt with a handful of housing issues, poverty issues, facing homelessness, all type of things.
Was there a period in your childhood that you were homeless?
Yeah.
Wow. From what age?
Ooh, I think it's easier to say what ages I wasn't homeless.
What?
A lot of folks don't realize this, but in the South, it's very normal for families to be homeless living in hotels, sharing homes between three families. That's a normal thing down there.
But
It's not.
that was with 8 siblings?
Oh yeah, yeah,
That's crazy. So what about your father?
yeah. He was around here and there. I actually lived with him in Macon, Georgia, when I was 10.
Okay. Okay.
There was just custody battles going on. My mom and dad were married at one point. They got divorced. Me and both of my siblings that he has by my mother, we lived with him at some point, but it was short lived.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what's your relationship with your dad like now?
We had to repair that thing.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so he would have his spurts of being present, then not being present, right?
Mm.
And he went to jail for some drug stuff after after Hurricane Katrina happened. He went from Louisiana to Houston, or sorry, San Antonio, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and he had went to jail for drug charges.
Okay.
And
Wow.
a little bit about that is during that time, everybody who had went to Texas from Louisiana because of Katrina, they were actually getting like double charged for time that they had already served.
What?
So that's a whole thing within itself. So he ended up going back to jail for some time that he had already served down there.
How does that make sense? Just
Nobody
cuz
wanted them. Nobody wanted the Louisiana people nowhere.
okay. So they just served double time because of a natural disaster?
Yeah, yeah.
That doesn't make That's crazy. I never knew that. Fun fact that I learned today. Okay. Um so when you as you were growing up, you know, obviously your father wasn't there consistently, but you lived with him at some point.
Yeah.
Um did you ever as a kid like question why your parents never worked out? Was this just normal to you that your parents weren't together? And how long did you live with your dad?
Yeah, I think it was kind of normal. Like I don't think I never really questioned why my dad wasn't there.
Mhm.
Because there would be times when he was there and it didn't feel like he was there. And honestly, for the better part of my childhood, my dad didn't really claim me or my brother. So he has three children by my mom.
Okay.
He didn't claim me and my little brother as his children, only my sister. So, when holidays would come around, birthdays, he'll pop up, but he'll only show love to my sister. So it was like he was there, but he wasn't really there.
So why though? Do you know why he
Yeah,
wasn't?
yeah. So when I was 30, that was the first time I got into therapy, right? And I started to try to understand myself, my emotions, the things that I repress about myself, right?
Mhm.
And I realized, okay, I have some static with my dad.
Right.
And I've always been able to call my dad. Like even earlier today, I got a missed call from him. I can always
Okay.
call my pops, right? And I reached out to him like, hey, you know what? I'm in this part of discovering myself. I noticed that you did this, you handled this way, blah blah blah, right?
Mhm.
And I asked him, hey pops, what caused you to do that? Because I
Right.
didn't have a real relationship with my dad until my mid-20s,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
when I asked him, he said, y'all was boys. He said, you supposed to treat boys like that. Yeah, so
Like what?
oh yeah,
Just leave them alone and let them quote unquote grow up
you're not
on their
supposed to
own?
give boys love, and that's the toxic masculinity traits that some of our older generations of men dealt with. But at that
Mm.
moment, I learned, okay, if that's how he feels, he received that same treatment from his dad.
Right.
So at that moment, I had to forgive him because he didn't understand because he only gave me what he was given.
Mm. I'm sorry that that was your experience. I can't believe that, and this ain't just your dad, but I can't believe that we have, grown men out here really believing that you're not supposed to give boys love.
Hmm.
How crazy does that sound?
I think it's still kind of normal. I think it's getting better, but I think from a historical point of view, men have always shown boys tough love. I think that's a very normal thing, I'm thankful for a lot of like dads who are stepping up and breaking that cycle now, because
Yes.
more dads are pouring love into their sons, and they realize like, hey, we need that love as boys and men as well.
Right. Exactly. Right. And you're right when it comes to bringing up the generational differences, because it's like the way that people are being raised today, we do understand the importance of mental health.
Hmm.
There's awareness on that. Um, but then it's like before, things were so black and white. It's like, okay, boys, they just need respect,
Hmm.
period. Girls, they need love,
Right,
period.
right.
It's like, okay, but we're human beings. And whether you're a male or a female, you need both love and
Hmm.
respect. So just you growing up as a result of your father's trauma and raising you with that belief. Um, Kind of last question about uh, your childhood transitioning into adulthood. Um, Obviously you sought therapy, which is a good step to transition from, that trauma to triumph now.
Hmm.
Um, but what's one lesson that you can take away from your childhood and how you were treated into the man you are today?
I think the biggest lesson is where you start and where you finish don't have to be the same position.
Hmm.
I think there's always room for growth and room for change. And no matter your environment, your upbringing, you always have the ability to take control and
Well,
redirect your future.
well said. Well said. This is the Man Up Club Presents podcast, and we're talking to Jontae Washington. We're back on the Man Up Club Presents podcast, and thank you, Jontae, for sharing that about your childhood. It's just so crazy to think that people are facing those traumas from their parents, but you are one of the blessed ones to be able to go seek that therapy, and to make that transition into understanding why your parent acted the way that they did,
Hmm.
to where now you can move independently and have, a clear mind. That's fair
Yeah.
to say, right?
Hmm.
So let's kind of move into, what you've been through in life. Everyone has gone through their own struggles. Nobody's perfect. When you look at a person, you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what they've been through
Right.
just by judging a book by its cover. So what would you say has been your biggest challenge in life?
I definitely would say my biggest challenge has been parenting, especially doing it as a single parent. So I have to give kudos to a lot of single moms out there, because you don't know what that's like until you're a part of that. Until you're a part of that statistic.
Speaking of statistics, it's often that I hear about single mothers, but
Hmm.
it's more rare that I hear about single fathers, especially in the Black community.
Yeah.
Um, how did you become a single father?
Yeah, so I will say this before answering your question. I thought I was the poster boy for single parents. And then I found out, oh Lord, it ain't no shortage. There's a lot of single dads, single black dads as well, that's
Hmm.
like stepping up and doing what they do.
And before you answer my question about what got you in that position, let me ask you this question. Why do you think that the Black community experiences just single parenthood so often? Why is that normal?
We got to go into the history behind it. We got to go into how black neighborhoods were deconstructed. You had to get the dads out the house to receive certain benefits. We had the I don't know if I can say certain drugs, but we had
Yeah,
that.
you can go ahead and
Yeah,
say yeah.
so we had that that crack cocaine epidemic, right? That really hit our community the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those impacts are still here today.
Mm. Yeah, I mean,
Oh, and then
go ahead.
also, the lengthened jail times, and stuff like that. So there's a few factors that plays into the 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 black community today that's still affected by what happened in previous generations.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know a little bit about redlining and
Yep.
about, just, I mean, the foundation of how this country was started, of course, was not to benefit people of color. And, we as a human race know the importance of having a strong family.
Mhm.
It's important to have a present father, have a present mother,
Yeah.
and raise healthy children,
Mhm.
because everything that a person is raised up with, that's how they learn about life.
Right.
And, when you break that down, you knock down the pillar of the father.
Right.
No, we're going to take the father out.
Mhm.
What does that do for a child? You know what I'm saying? Like, now, if you have kids, those kids, there's certain things that they would only get from their dad. There's certain
Right.
things that they would only get from their mom.
Right.
And so now you knock those experiences out of their lives. So now they're automatically operating at a deficit,
Mhm.
you know? So yeah, I definitely agree with you
And what I would
on
add
that.
to that is I think that, and I try my best to not sound sexist or anything like that.
Hmm.
But from what I've observed from my personal experience, right, and my opinion just being reserved for myself,
Yeah, be real.
I've observed that oftentimes fathers are more on the disciplinary side, whereas women tend to, after carrying this baby for 9 months, is so much more attached and treat that child more like a friend. So I think fathers are always like, I gotta instill respect. I gotta make this kid the best version of themselves for when I release them. They gotta know what to do, what not to do. And from my personal experience, it seems like more mothers are just more so focused on how can I nurture this child
Hmm.
and how can I,
Protect.
yep, nurture, protect, and love and shelter.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
the thing about that is when you send that nurtured, protected, sheltered child into the real world,
Mm.
there's gonna be some learning curves that child's gonna have to go through. Whereas fathers, from my personal opinion, seems to be like, how can I shape and craft this child, this little being, to the best version of themselves to give to the world.
That's real. I like the fact that you said that because you really made me think, because even from with my situation, like I didn't grow up around my dad like 24/7. I come
Hmm.
from a blended family. My mom's side of my family raised me from my childhood. Um and yeah, that to me it's like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense, that like I and this is just me being honest, like I think for me, like I have been sheltered, pretty
Yeah.
much my whole life. I've always kind of um knew that people would have my back. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So it's like I never really thought about like, okay, let me go out here and get it myself. Like let me,
Hmm.
what I'm saying, establish that discipline within myself.
Right.
So that definitely makes sense. So okay, so back to my question. How did you become the single father that you are?
Man, so I don't how raw can I be here?
Very raw. Very much
Well, that's
so.
how I got the baby, very raw.
You- Okay, but that's real.
Okay. That
But
was that
that's
was that
real
was a
though.
dad joke. That
No,
was a
but
dad joke.
that's okay. So that's what happened. So y'all slept together,
Yeah.
you and your mother's child.
Hmm.
Okay, then what?
So the just really raw, transparent story, right?
Yeah.
Um I met my daughter's mom. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I was kind of a little lonely. I was in school full time, working full time, mentoring fifth grade students through the 101 program in Brooklyn Park. And I was also training jujitsu and Muay Thai, right? So
Wow.
I was just so stretched, and I just kind of wanted some companionship, right?
Mm.
I met my daughter's mom. We hit it off, and I did not see some of the I didn't see some of the signs I should have saw.
Mm-hmm.
just because of how busy I was. And I kind of discovered that she was like an avid drug user, she will always be lying. And eventually I was like, listen, I can't do this, and I would have these talks and she would be like, okay, I will stop the drug use. I'll be more honest. She wasn't. So then I just decided that, hey, we can't go further. But one of the things that she told me was that she was on birth control,
Okay.
right?
Right.
Fast forward, break up with her, don't hear from her for 7 months, and she pop up and say, I'm 7 months pregnant.
What?
Yep, popped up 7 months pregnant. So I had 2 months to adjust to parenthood.
2 months.
Mm-hmm.
2 months
2 months to adjust to parenthood.
to mentally. You had 2 months to mentally become a father.
Yep.
How old were you?
27, 28. I think I was 27. No, 28. I don't know.
Okay. And see, the thing is, a lot of people become fathers and mothers at a very young age, and that's its own burden,
Yeah.
right? But still, even in your late 20s, for you, that's still a big shock.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole new life that you're in charge of now.
Mhm.
That you're like, okay, so I helped to create this human being, and this
Right.
little human being is about to be born. So what was that? What was the mentality of that? Can you like walk us through what you were thinking and how you were moving?
Oh yeah, I hated it. I was like, wait, she pregnant? This a girl? That's So I just disagreed with it so much because
Mm,
I wanted to be married when I brought a child into this world.
wow.
I wanted to do it. I don't know if there's really a right or wrong way, but in my mind, I always perceived the right way to be having a mother in the house, having a father in the house, right? Now that could be whether you're married or not, but my preference was to be married before I had my first child,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
You were in denial.
I was, yeah, I was like, oh hell, I was like, oh heck, I was like, oh no, I was like, oh no, and baby was born. Um, yeah, that was that. I was the dad.
Okay. So what was when your child was born, and this is your only child today?
Hmm.
When your child was born, was the co-parenting okay once the child was born?
So I think the first couple months was like decent. It was like all right. Um, right after she was born, I was like literally put on child support like 2 months later, right?
Mm.
And what's crazy is I was going through these child support battles, and at this point, I had my daughter full time, and when she was about 6 months, so I was
So the mother of your child, she had checked out of
yeah,
raising her,
yep,
and you had your daughter full time.
yep,
Okay.
yep, while also paying child support because I didn't have no legal custodial rights. So whenever when you have a child and you're not married, you have no rights to your child. So things like that can happen where you're paying child support and also have your kid in your possession and your custody.
Hold on, pause. So if you are not married
Mhm.
and you have a child,
Yeah.
you don't, as a father,
Mhm.
you don't have rights to your child because you're not married?
In the state of Minnesota, if you're not married when that child was conceived, the father has no custodial rights to the child whatsoever. You have to go to family court and establish rights if you have a child and you're not married as a man.
Father. Okay, you can cut that out. But yeah, fathers and all males, you need to know that.
Oh yeah.
You need to know that. This is the Man Up Club Presents podcast on Holy Culture Radio. We will be right back. We are back with the Man Up Club Presents podcast talking about fatherhood, talking about single parenthood, and just the pitfalls that you can run into, just not knowing about these things. So, Jontae, you had to go through this. You were in a situation where you have full custody of your daughter,
Mm-hmm.
but you didn't have any rights. And
Right.
yeah, you didn't have any rights to the point where you were also paying child support. See, that tells me right there that our government is extremely flawed. I mean, no government's perfect,
Mm-hmm.
but obviously that's really petty and doesn't make any sense whatsoever
Mm-hmm.
that you are being financially penalized
Yeah.
when you were matter of factly taking care of your daughter full time.
Yep.
So speaking of, mishaps and situations like that, like obviously being a parent, you don't get a rule book, you don't get trained. It's not
Right.
like a job that you get trained for. This is when you do this, is when you do this. Yeah, you can read books, but it's nothing like experiencing the real thing in real time.
Mm-hmm.
So what were some other kind of harsh realities that you had to learn on this journey of raising your daughter?
Woo. I think what didn't I have to learn? You are not only learning how to be a father, right? You're learning how to deal with another person.
Hmm.
I think it's easier to say you can deal with somebody when you are in a relationship or something, right? But when you are the sole caregiver, sole provider, sole custodial parents, it's it can be a lot to learn. It can be a lot to handle.
Mhm. Mhm. And that's another thing. How would you have conversations? Cause how old your daughter now?
She'll be 8 this November, actually. Scorpio, November 7th.
Okay. Okay. So I mean, she's still young now. So, but she's obviously becoming more independent and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Do you have conversations with her about her mother, and what is that like?
Ooh, I used to not like to have conversations, and I will always deflect because she's always been very intelligent. When she was
Hmm.
4, she would literally say stuff like, "Dad, since Granny is your mom and Granddad is your dad, and you're my dad, then who's my mom?" So
Mhm.
so she was articulating herself
Mm.
from that position from a very early age, and I'll just change the subject.
Really?
Yeah, but then that following year, I believe when she was 5, is when I was like, I'm gonna have a real conversation because she's always asking about this. She's going to random women and asking them to be her mom.
What? Yeah.
Can you imagine a heartbreak from that?
Oh
Like
man.
forget being a single parent, right?
Mhm.
It was so much more harder to endure seeing my daughter longing for a mother than it was for me to raise her by myself and all the struggles I went through. So much more harder to endure her. And I felt for a long time like I failed her.
Mm.
I felt as if I failed her for a long time. And I come with my own, you know, toxic masculinity traits. So it's like I never got nurtured. So how do I nurture? So I had to learn how to develop so many different muscles through parenting, and I've read the books, I've taken the classes. Even till this day, I try to be more what's the word? I try to be more sensitive and empathetic. Like, say if she was running and she fell, I
Mhm.
just pick her back up.
Mhm. Right.
But I think to your point, there has to be some sheltering, some nurturing, that comes with that.
Mhm.
And that was a muscle that I'm still working on as well.
Mhm.
So I will always feel as if I failed her because I couldn't give her the things that a mother that came from love could give her because I didn't come from love. My dad was out the picture most of my life. my mother, she worked a lot. She would be
Mm.
working 12-hour shifts, 14-hour shifts
For 9 kids.
for 9 kids, and she would come home and just sleep. And for
Oh
various
man.
parts of my childhood, she didn't have a car. So she would have to ride a bus like an hour out and then walk like 2 hours because where her job site was at, there was no transportation around it. So she would just catch a bus as close as she could to her job and then walk the rest of the way. So just on her commute and transportation to and from work was 6 hours. So my mother was
Mm.
present. So we had to raise ourselves. So I'm the third oldest child.
Oh wow.
Yep, I got two older brothers and six younger siblings, and I had to raise them as well. The oldest brother, he's still back in Louisiana. When we left to Georgia the last time, he's still back in Louisiana with my grandmother. My older brother, he was just trying to do his thing. So I was really the person that worked two jobs, since 14, providing, helping my mom, pay bills after we came to Minnesota.
Mm.
Um, Doing stuff like learning how to do perms and straight iron hair so I can do my little sister's head, learning how to do, fading and stuff like that. Right. So,
Do you feel like I also don't want to steal what you were about to say
oh,
too,
yeah,
but
no,
I
you go
have
ahead.
to ask this question. Do you feel like you missed out on your childhood?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think
Oh,
I'm not going to use the word robbed, but I did not have a childhood from,
wow.
from a, from a conventional standard of what a childhood looks like.
Dang. You really are, making me think about life because I'm over here like, dang, I really got it good. I mean, obviously I have my own issues, um, and my own deficits and things that I've gone through, but I had a childhood
hmm
that I enjoyed to the fullest extent, you know, and even now becoming an adult, it's like, dang, like I'm never gonna get that time back. Like that's, but it's like, oh, I guess that I had my full experience of being a kid. You know what I'm saying? Where I literally would every single day come home from school and look forward to watching Animal Planet and acting like the polar bears and
hmm
letting my imagination run wild and looking at Polar Express for dinner and setting up the chairs and the dining room table and acting like it was the Polar Express and I
Yeah.
was serving coffee or serving hot chocolate and stuff to my little sister. Like we would just let our imaginations run wild
hmm
to the point like I could tell you countless stories. You know what I'm saying? Of and I just have to share this too, but there's other time where it flooded in Louisville, Kentucky, so much to the point where like the water was all the way up to your like knees.
Mm.
And
Yeah, I was
me
on rafts.
no, me
Oh.
and my sisters me and my sister went to the backyard and swam in it.
Oh, okay.
And we had guinea pigs and they were swimming with us.
Guinea
So
pig.
yes, that's what I'm saying. Like it was a whole adventure. Like it was two little girls in the backyard swimming with guinea pigs in the backyard. No pool,
Uh-huh.
but it was things like that. And so I just point that out to say that like I am so grateful to God that I was able to let my imagination run so wild. But
Mhm.
and that's not to say that you didn't have an imagination because you did. I feel like all
Yeah.
kids have an imagination. It just looks different.
Yeah. I will say this. When you can own rats on purpose, that is a blessed life.
They're guinea pigs.
Guinea
They're
pigs
not
is
rats.
rats.
They're not rats. They're guinea pigs. Anyways, um, yeah. So, okay. So obviously, it seems like you're happy now, right?
Mhm.
Um, there's so many people who do grow up feeling like they were robbed of their childhood. How have you reached this point of just being content and like do you allow yourself as an adult to like play now or like where how do you console that part of you, that the little boy in you now?
That's a great question. Gotta stop saying so much. But I think that you can have a fortunate childhood and still be robbed of your childhood if it lacked love.
Mm.
You know, the little boy in me is still there, but the little boy in me knows what the world is, and the little boy in me is always trying to make the world a better place. So that's the reason why I do all the volunteering I do. I try to do all the motivation I can do. I try to do all of the community engagement I do. And I try to keep people connected and show people like there is love out here. And I try to bring love everywhere I go, understanding and grace. I think one of the biggest things that consoles me is understanding that I'm the person that's in charge. If I'm going to be unhappy today, I chose to do that. So if I'm going to be happy today, I'm going to choose to do that. So I think what consoles me is just knowing like I'm the captain of this ship and I make the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I can choose to be on this side of life. I can choose to be on that side of life. And it don't matter what is going on, what kind of tornado of a life that you are currently presented with, your optimism or your optimistic
You said it right the
you
first time.
I'm
Your
like, hold on, wait a
optimism.
minute. Yeah, your optimism is your choice. And I've had some low days when I was happy. And I've had some high days when I was just in the slumps. So now I just choose me. I choose happiness no matter where I go, and I try to spread that to as many people as I can along that journey.
Thank you for that. You said something that was interesting, I think in the last segment, but I have to go back to it because it was just it's something worth going back to. Um, when you got together with the mother of your child, or when you
Hmm.
guys were dating, or when you came across her
Right.
initially, you were doing a lot of different stuff. You were
Hmm.
stretched thin, stretched to the max. You said you was doing like a taekwondo class, or what was it called?
Jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai.
Jiu-jitsu class,
Hmm.
right? You were also mentoring how many youth? Like
Fifth
15,
grade students.
fifth grade students.
So
And
so it would be a class setting, but they gave me the two black kids that caused the most problems. So everybody else had one kid. I had two black boys, but I was thankful for it.
you were doing a lot. And the thing is, you said even though that you were involved in a lot, you felt lonely.
Hmm.
And that just goes to show people that you can be involved in so many things. You can be in a lot of people's faces. You
Hmm.
can be your schedule can be booked to the max, and you can
Right.
be booked and busy, and you know what I'm saying, have things to do. You're talking to people, sending people emails, sending
Right.
people calls, like doing this, doing that.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of the times because of that
Yeah.
that you're lonely,
Hmm.
because you're not getting an intimate connection.
Right.
And I'm sorry. Okay, we gonna have to dive right into this, guys. We gonna have to dive into this in our last segment. But this is the Man Up Club Presents podcast, and we are learning a lot from Mr. Jontae. We're back in the Man Up Club Presents podcast. Let me get back to what I was saying. Okay, one, I was making it a point to say you can be so busy doing things and so occupied, and you could be talking to people all day.
Yep.
I know this very well. But you can feel lonely.
Yeah.
And it's because we as humans crave intimacy.
Hmm.
And when I say intimacy, I'm not just talking about physical intimacy. No, I'm talking about feeling heard
Right.
by a person and feeling understood and having another person take their time with you,
Hmm.
you know. Um
Attention.
exactly, attention and all
Right.
that. So, you know, that's a very vulnerable position to be in.
Oh yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is. Cuz a lot of us, that's part of the reason why we have hookup culture,
Hmm.
is because of the fact that, people in life go through these situations,
Right.
or maybe it's not a situation, but it's just how they're feeling, and it puts them in a bad situation,
Right. Right.
you know?
You know, so I will say the caveat to that is oftentimes as people might be experiencing loneliness or whatever, they make themselves more busy. And it just keeps going deeper and deeper and worse and spiraling more and more because now you're so stretched that you don't really have time to meet people at that point.
Right.
You know what I see often too is when somebody maybe break up, get out of a relationship, instead of taking time to maybe process that, they just try to keep themselves as busy as they can.
Because they don't want to go through the
They don't
pain
want to
of
go
the
through the
breakup.
pain, and the pain never leaves. The pain always stays, and you can be 3 years removed from that pain, but that was never addressed, so that issue is still there. So then you start dating somebody else. It's 3 years later, but that's still a fresh wound because you never processed it. So
Mm,
that's what I would encourage people to do is take some time for yourself and process. And nothing's wrong with processing, and you have to feel that pain. You know the whole reason why they do an open casket at a funeral?
I can assume why, but tell me why.
It's for anybody that has denial to sit in front that loved one and realize, okay, this is a real thing. That person's actually gone. So
Mm,
so it's actually there to benefit you in your process of healing.
right. To see, even, yeah, yeah. Ooh,
To know that this is a real thing. Like
yeah,
that person really is gone. I
right.
seen them laying there with that 3-piece suit on. They not here no more.
And they're not moving, they're
Hmm.
not blinking, they're not doing anything.
Right.
But see, but for a lot of people, that's why they can't even face their loved one in the casket. They can't, because that's what I'm saying. They don't want to.
Don't you don't
It's
want to
too
move on?
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to move on. They're not ready to see that person, and don't let it be a situation where that person was tragically just snatched from them like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know. So the other question becomes, okay, so when we go through problems, right? When we go through breakups, um this person broke your heart and now you're devastated, so you want to hurry up and like talk to different people because you feel like you're wasting time, and you want someone to fill this void, or somebody, a loved one passed away, and you are not ready to see that person dead in that open casket. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
These are two very different situations, but the commonality between them is that,
Grief.
yes, you said it very
Grief.
perfectly. You said it
Yeah.
very perfectly. It's grief. It's the loss of something that you care about or that you love. And the question becomes, what if you're not strong enough to deal with that grief, to accept that grief? That's why people get into drugs. That's why
Hmm.
people hook up all the
Yeah.
time. But at some point, I think people have to, it's unfortunate.
Oh yeah, it is.
But because people will go through the same cycle and get hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt. Some people lose themselves in
Oh
that.
yeah. It's easy to do.
And only some of us think and reflect like, you know what? This is actually not really healing what's really wrong. So let me go and dig deeper spiritually, or you
Right.
know what I'm saying? So do you think that the people who recover from such traumatic situations, do you think it's because it's the way that they're made, or like, what determines success or bouncing back?
We talking about in the case of like that trauma and grief.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think I think we are all made for everything.
That we
You
go
know.
through.
Yeah. I don't think that there's really necessarily one person that is stronger than the next. I think it's just choice. And I think that goes back to mindset. Either you let this tear you apart and break you down, or you stay like resilient and know that you have to keep moving. And I think the people who process it and move on understood, I gotta keep moving, because guess what? This person's not here, but guess who is here? Them 3 kids, or that spouse that you still have, or your family that's counting on you to be the leading source of their financial freedom. So I think that the only difference is, there's a phrase, separate the men from the boys. You know what I'm saying? I think it's just, this separates you from the person who chooses not to move on.
Mm.
And usually there's some kind of motivation for you to move on. Everybody might not have that.
And I'm gonna say this thing. It's not about. Don't confuse moving on with forgetting about that it ever happened,
Of
because
course.
that's not what we're saying. Um, because I lost someone very close to me, my grandmother, and you never forget about that. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
it's a some things in life that we go through. It's a pain that will always be with you for the
Mm-hmm.
rest of your life, but it's about how do you learn how to live with it, to
Move.
live with it,
Yeah.
not to.
I think moving on is just summed up as acceptance. Like, okay, dang, I lost this person, or this relationship ended, or this with the business or whatever. It's just acceptance. And I think once you accept something, it allows you to, you know, gain that growth and push forward.
Wow. Yeah, this is good, because I can tell that there's people who are, because it's making me think, so I know it's making other people think too. So where are you now compared to where you used to be?
It's too many versions. Like, where is the where is the starting point? You
Okay,
talking
because
about
there's
when I
you're
was in the
saying
streets? Like, what are we talking about?
okay, so there's different evolutions of you. Let's actually talk about that. So we didn't know that you was in the streets. So what was you doing in the streets?
Hey, I was like every other teenager out here. Whatever you can think about was going on, was going on.
Okay, I got you. How did you make the transition out of that? Because you were a big brother, and I'm pretty sure you got into that because of survival mode, right?
Environmental,
Yeah.
environmental. So man, life be lifing. Got kicked out the house when I was 18. All type of stuff. I think just environmental factors play a huge role, but I think taking control of your life is what it ultimately is going to boil down to every time. So, like I told you, I've always worked, help my family, right? I had to quit high school to provide for the family, right?
Mm,
To start
dang.
college, I had to go get my GED. I got my GED when I was like 21, 22 or so. So I dropped out of high school, was working at Walmart to get that bread to help my family survive. Um, Enough was enough. I was out doing crazy things, and I was like, "This ain't the life I ever visioned for myself."
Mm-hmm.
I went to a adult learning place in South Minneapolis, got my GED, started college. And that's when I started to like take control of my life.
Wow. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. No, seriously, like it's amazing to hear how you've been resilient through all these trials and tribulations, and sometimes also challenges are blessings in disguise as well.
Yeah, I would think so.
You
I would
know,
think so.
like your daughter.
hmm
Yes, it was a challenge, but obviously she's a blessing.
Yeah, she, not to sound cliche, but she taught me how to love.
Mm.
She taught me how to love, and not just love, but love in its purest form,
Unconditional.
unconditional.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just ruined my whole house. You just broke this furniture. You just did this. Girl, you're talking way too much, but that unconditional love,
Mm-hmm.
So she the one that taught me how to show up no matter what. Show up, show up,
Mm.
show up. And I think that that is something that will transfer to my love life when that happens as well.
I like that. Just show up, and at the Man Up Club, that is one of the pillars of what it takes to be successful,
Yeah.
is stressing the importance of showing up.
Yep.
Um, the mentors at the Man Up Club, they say to man up is to show up.
Yep.
You know, just show up.
Just gotta do what you gotta do
Right.
until you ain't gotta do it no more.
Last couple thoughts. Do you have any regrets?
Not really. Not really. I'm a huge believer that experiences make who you are. And the version that I am right now, I wouldn't really exchange that for a guy I don't know. So I don't really think I got regrets. because I don't know that guy, and what we might call a regret, if we can change it, could have probably led to bigger regrets. So I'm good with where I'm at. So no, I don't have any regrets.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to go out. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Very welcome.
Yes, this is the Man Up Club Presents podcast on Holy Culture Radio. Make sure you guys tune in for another great episode. We're out.